Welcome, everyone, to Dead Reckoning Radio, and good night, or good evening, I don't know. I am your host, Jay Friesen, in the studio live with the Aren't You Having a Baby Soon, Hadley Heath, and the Still Has Mono, Dr. Brian G. Mattson.
Nice.
DR Radio is where we sit around this old door turntable and discuss the latest cultural hotspots from a distinctly Christian perspective. We are live tonight. Thank you for joining us on Facebook. We are looking forward to your banter in the comments during the show. So if you want to join us, hover over the live feed you see coming through your stream and hit the click more button to join the chat. And thank you to those who have downloaded our 5-star rated podcast. We love being with you every week as you run, drive, ride, walk, or just putz around the house. If you have not subscribed to our podcast, you should. We would really encourage that in case you happen to miss a live show or everything else. So visit our website at www.deadreckoning.tv. As always, we have a great show for you tonight. We'll be discussing the latest in Trumpville and the Republican National Convention currently happening. We're not watching.
We're competing. We are competing with the Donald
RNC,
Trump nomination acceptance speech tonight.
And we will talk about what we should be thinking about the failed coup in Turkey and what the future might hold as a result of the continued onslaught of terrorism in Europe. As expected, we'll be breaking up deeper discussions for games of wit and whimsy. Tonight's games including Gary Marshall trivia, the late Gary Marshall trivia.
I am so going to lose that. I'm going to lose that.
You have a chance to redeem yourself. So you think you know the Princess Bride. That will be the next
Hadley has
game.
a look on her face like she's going to lose that one. So
I think I know the Princess Bride, but that's the name of the game is So You Think You Know the Princess Bride.
It's kind of
I'm
ominous.
already in the trap.
It's ominous. Yes.
Right. So thank you for joining us. Before we get started with a few quick takes, special thanks to our sponsors for making the show possible. Dead Reckoning is a 501c3 that relies on their support and your generous donations. Today's sponsors are Alliance Defending Freedom, defending your right to freely live out your faith. ADF is battling for freedom daily in the courts of America. You can visit them at www.adflegal.org. And a special shout out to our donors. You know who you are. Thank you. We love you. Guys, Brian, you just got back from France.
Yes.
Hadley, you've had a couple of media appearances. So before we dive into 3 of our quick takes to kick off our 90 minutes, unless the internet goes down, Brian, give us a quick recap of your trip in France. And then, Hadley, tell us about your media appearances that are noteworthy.
Sure, yeah. I spent about 9 days in the south of France in a small village called La Bastide-Rouarou for a study center there that invited me to come and do some teaching and a lot of informal interaction with students. And it was really a pretty magical time. The weather was amazing. The 18th century chateau that I was at was amazing. The food was unbelievable. Great wine every night. Amazing fellowship. Made a lot of good friends. Got to go see the Tour de France, Jay. I was at the
I saw some of your photos and I'm like super jealous.
Dude, I was like right there. It was amazing. So basically that was an all-day affair, waiting around for about 1 minute for all the bikes to go by, and then we went, okay, let's go home. So that was really cool. It was awesome. It was a great trip. I was delighted that I did it.
Nice.
And can't wait to go back someday.
Fantastic. Hadley, noteworthy media appearances. You mentioned you're going to be on Fox tomorrow, but what about this last week?
I'm booked on, so tomorrow you can catch me on Neil Cavuto's show, although Neil Cavuto's been out for a while. He had some heart surgery issues, but Your World comes on at 4 p.m. Eastern. I'm soft booked for the show, which sometimes they change things, but I'm fairly confident that my topic will have something to do with responding to things that have happened at the RNC this week. So that's exciting. But my last appearance was on Fox Business, and we were talking about Mike Pence and his selection as Trump's vice president. But this was actually a day before the official announcement. So we were all kind of like, is he going to do it? Is he going to announce it? Is Trump going to, what's he going to? So just another example of Trump keeping the media folks' heads spinning, the talking heads' heads are spinning, constantly trying to keep up with how he plays the game.
What's he going to do next, Joe?
Yep, looks like Pence is official now, so that's the deal.
Although I read that after it was official, like an hour later, Trump wanted to rescind it. But I don't know.
Well,
The Onion ran a headline about that.
We'll get to that. That's coming up in the first main segment. So, a couple quick takes. Obviously, I tweeted out a couple times that I wanted to walk around and just intentionally knock people over or pickpocket them or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. A game where you hunt and catch imaginary monsters has taken the world by storm. Pokemon Go is different than traditional games that you play in reality because every Pokemon is on your phone and you got to travel to all these different locations to catch them. Pokestops, trains, there's 30 million users, you guys. 30 million users wandering around with their heads in their phones. Not that they aren't in their heads in their phones anyway, but mobs of them,
Pokemon Go,
back and forth. I saw this meme where all these swans or ducks or whatever they were all in one group going one way, and then in one group going the other way, and then one group, and
they were looking for Pokemon.
They looped this, and somebody said, "Pokemon Go users right here." Yeah.
What do you make of this, Hadley? This phenomenon.
I think I see the cause and the effect, but this is just my opinion. I think the cause is that people have, this is a really ripe time for people wanting to escape reality. Ooh. Because the realities of the world around us are not very pleasant. We have terrorist attacks. We have sort of some unpleasant political figures in the United States at the top of the two major parties' tickets. People are logging on to social media. Police officers are getting killed. Black men are getting killed. So it's what can we do to kind of do something brainless and take our mind off these heavy things? And it's social. It's still social media, but the effect, I know a lot of people have commented on people walking off cliffs and getting in car accidents because they're looking for Pokemon, but I think with 30 million users, it's kind of a miracle that fewer incidents like that haven't happened.
Yeah.
When you have 30 million people doing something, you're gonna have a few idiots doing it.
A lot. A lot.
The numbers game says
the percentage.
You're gonna have some people doing dumb stuff.
The average percentage of idiots in any population is actually really high. So.
Yeah. No, but on the positive, like one of my friends pointed out, this game has maybe done more to reduce childhood obesity than 8 years of Michelle Obama's efforts to do so.
Burn.
So there's some positive things.
Okay,
right.
That was good analysis. I mean, there's a reason we have Hadley on this show. That was good analysis. Thanks, guys. Decades ago, Neil Postman wrote a famous book called "Amusing Ourselves to Death," and I think that Pokemon Go is like the final nail in the coffin. We are finally amusing ourselves to death. Look, when Pokemon was a thing, like back when I was a kid, when Pokemon was a thing, I thought
when you were a kid.
No, really, Pokemon's has actually been around a long time.
Pokemon's been around a really long time.
I'm older than you, Hadley. So,
yeah, I know.
A lot, by a lot.
Discussion.
No, I thought it was stupid then, and to actually see my peers now running around chasing Pokemons, I think it's even more stupid now.
People that you would consider your peers who are playing this game, Brian?
Oh, no, I actually don't. I don't know any 40.
Yeah.
I don't know any 40-year-olds.
I don't know anybody actually playing Pokemon right now. I don't know a single person.
Then who are these 30 million people? Are we just that isolated or something?
Yes, we live in Montana. We're isolated.
That might have something to do with it.
Remley plays it with her kids, she says.
Remley plays Pokemon Go. Wow. Remley, I did not mean to just call you stupid. No, that's not what I said. It's not what I meant.
You guys, there's another. Brian has a solo project right now, and it's not really a solo because it's a duet.
Yeah, but how do you have a solo duo?
Brian, I have to confess, I got the invite for your Friends and Family debut concert next week, and I got the links and everything else, and I never took the time. I kept forgetting about it. It was Lauren.
It's forgettable, I know.
No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I got higher priority things right now. But anyway, last night I went and checked out a website, the whole website, read through everything, listened to all the music that he has up there.
Which is not much.
Yeah, you're doing something. Tell us about your new band. Your new
I have a duo project going. I've teamed up with my longtime friend, Carrie Skiles, who's a female vocalist, and as far as I'm concerned, the best. And so we've teamed up, and so we have a duo, and it's acoustic guitar and two vocals, and So we've been working hard on this for months, trying to put together a good act, and we've been writing a lot of original material, a lot of new songs together, and putting it together. So next week, the group is called Ticker Tape Parade. So you can go to my website and just look up Ticker Tape Parade.
I love that quote you pulled out, that image.
Yeah, I actually dug up an old news clip,
the news clipping
from the New York Times from 1896 of a news story about a parade.
Man,
and you just got to read it. You got to read it.
Write back
it's
then.
unbelievable. So that's on the website, Ticker Tape Parade website, and then we have a friends and family debut outdoor concert that we're going to do next Friday. So we've been working hard on trying to get that put together. So
awesome,
pretty exciting.
So we'll go check it out. What do you have a website yet?
It is tickertapeparade.bandzoogle.com.
Bandzoogle. So it's kind of like Gizoogle.
Bandzoogle.com.
Nice.
Yeah.
Bandzoogle.
Ticker Tape Parade.
Yeah, go check it out and sign up and follow them. Do you have a Facebook page?
We do.
Perfect.
Ticker Tape Parade.
What's your vision? Do you have a vision for this thing? Like, are you going to go pro?
Oh yeah. Oh, somebody offered me a contract. I'd probably take it. I don't know what the future holds. I do know that, at my age and at Carrie's age particularly, like the window of opportunity at which you could actually do something with music is closing kind of rapidly. So we're gonna give it a shot.
Now, quick question before we move on to our final quick take. How much? What's your emphasis? Because you're by trade, you're a public theologian, aka Dead Reckoning, and your writings and everything else. Are you taking that same level of academia and putting it into your music and your songwriting?
Well, that's a great question. I tend to I try to write powerful and informed songs, and so they're all theological to varying degrees. But I would not characterize my music or my songwriting or Ticker Tape Parade stuff as like Christian music. It's not worship music. It's music that's sung. God made the heavens and the earth, and that means that we can sing about anything meaningfully, anything in heaven or earth. And so we sing about a lot of different stuff. So that's kind of where we're pegged.
Nice. Very cool. Hadley, since our last show, there's been a slew of deadly violence between citizens and police. Obviously, all of it in response to the shootings of black men around the country at the hands of police officers. A sniper opened fire on police officers patrolling a Black Lives Matter protest, killing 5 and wounding 9. Other incidents of police shootings in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Kansas City, Missouri have inflamed further racial conflict in America. What's your quick take on this?
Man, it's a tough one for a quick take.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, I don't know that there is a lot to say about this. I mean,
or a lot more to say anyway.
Yeah, it's just obviously deplorable, any kind of violence against innocent people, including our law enforcement officers. And part of the shame of what has happened in the past couple of weeks is that I think the Alton Sterling and Philando Castile events that sort of set off this wave were starting to be a door opening to a conversation about the way black men are, the way black men interact with law enforcement generally in the country. And we had very moving videos from both of those incidents. And I even read some commentary from one of my friends who's a conservative who said, this video footage has caused me to rethink my opinion about what kind of problem this is in society and what it must be like for black men, especially, and black people to interact with police, and understanding that that's not a positive relationship in every community. But, part of the shame of what has happened with these, police shootings that have targeted police officers is that I'm afraid that some people who are ready to open their minds and hearts and conversations to that issue maybe have an excuse now to reclose their minds and to file this as sort of a conflict between two different groups and sort of a black and white, whose side are you on? Blue lives matter, black lives matter, instead of really fostering a conversation for everybody and sort of breaking down this idea that we're on different sides, So that's, not only do we have the loss of life, but I think we may be losing an opportunity as a country to address some of this stuff together, because when it's tit for tat and eye for an eye, when that's the mentality, we miss out on the opportunity to find some resolution.
Well, that's well said.
Very well said.
Yeah, I think that, the last time we had a Black Lives Matter movement in America, it was led by a man by the name of Martin Luther King Jr. And one of the premier principles of his movement was the principle of nonviolence. He understood that the minute you lash out in violence, you do great damage to the movement, because it simply polarizes and it allows the other side to demonize you. I think of Jackie Robinson, the first black player in Major League Baseball, when meeting with Branch Rickey, the Brooklyn Dodgers, who was going to hire him. Branch Rickey told him that, I want you to, never, ever react to the crap coming your way. And Branch Rickey says Jackie Robinson says, "Oh, you want somebody, who's weak and won't fight back." And Branch Rickey says, "No, I need somebody who's strong enough to not fight back." And this is, for all the momentum that Black Lives Matter was making, and I actually do think that they were making momentum. Hadley, my sense was on social media that there was kind of an awakening, and at least a somewhat of an appreciation, if not signing on to everything Black Lives Matter stands for. There was at least there are some communities where this is a real problem. Having somebody a sniper go out and shoot 5 police officers just set their movement back to the Stone Age. And this is a real problem in our country, and I feel like the racial divisions are wider than they have been in my entire life.
And what's really unfortunate is that it just takes one person,
right, to ruin it.
I'm sure there are a lot of people within the Black Lives Matter movement who have good hearts and good intentions, and they would never do anything violent like that. And they condemned the violence against police officers, and yet they can't control when one rogue person goes out and does something like this.
Yeah. But I was going to just bring up, because this wasn't in our show notes, but I don't know if you guys saw the Washington Post article today about the shooting that took place in North Miami.
No, I haven't.
Okay, there's a video of this, and I don't know what to make of it because it's so bizarre. But it's like the tensions are so strong and police officers are so fearful. Okay, you have a black man out in the middle of the street. There's a kind of a chubby black kid sitting on the street, and this black guy's out there talking to him. The kid has like a toy truck that he's playing with, and the cops show up, and the guy raises his hands, and he's laying on his back, and he's got his hands up, and you hear him on the video saying, I'm a mental health worker, and this is a boy who's walked away from his group home, and he's autistic, and I'm trying to get him off the street. Nobody has a gun. He's got a toy truck. Please don't shoot. This is all on the video. He's got his hands up. Don't shoot. I'm a health worker. Bang, bang, bang. They shot the guy. Now, he survived and he lived, but the Washington Post does a whole write-up on this story. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, number one, I hope Miami has one heck of an insurance policy, because they're going to be paying out the nose for this one. But number two, what is going on in that kind of a situation where a police officer is that light, heavy on his trigger? It was bizarre.
I've gone through, for the record on the show, I've gone through 2 different departments. I was applying to be a police officer earlier on in my life, about 10 years ago, and I went through 3 different trainings to get there. Ironically enough, I never paid it past the psych eval. Go figure.
Man, Jay, I just wouldn't have.
But there are very, very stringent ramifications and stringent regulations regarding when to pull, when to even present your firearm.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what's going through these cops.
I can't get it.
I don't
can't get my head around it.
I'm clueless. Are they just ignoring all protocol and everything?
Well, to their credit, the city of Miami has brought in an independent outside investigator to investigate this because, I mean, obviously there's video, cell phone video. It looks terrible. Yeah. And there's going to be serious consequences to that. But I guess I'm just asking is, does this play into, and maybe it doesn't, but maybe does this play into what's going on in our country in terms of the relationship between law enforcement and the citizenry? This is so obviously a case, if you watch this video, that nobody's in danger here. The guy's obviously is who he says he is, and that was weird.
We'll see how it plays out. We've just wrapped up some of our quick takes for those of you just joining us. We
wasn't particularly quick, but
it's always usually about 15-20 minutes. Pokemon Go, ticker tape, and police shootings. We're going to move on to our first major segment, and if you happen to be listening to us, you may or may not have the RNC Republican National Convention going on in the background. We haven't really seen real much of a fall off in listenership because of the RNC. We're about average, so we're right between 15 and 20.
I'm glad some people value us more
we
than
appreciate
the RNC
it.
convention. It's very good.
We appreciate it, you guys. You're the best.
We
it's
do.
also like 10 o'clock at night on the East Coast. That said, the Republican National Convention has dominated the news, as we all know, with very few GOP leaders wanting to speak. The lineup of speakers this year was interesting. We've all had... We've had the Trump kids, all of them, take a turn on the stage, as well as Mrs. Trump. And everybody was applauding her efforts, and she did remarkably well for her first major speaking appearance, probably because she pulled everything from Michelle Obama's speech in 2008, as a reporter in an airport in L.A. noticed. Whatever. Anyway, fallout ensues from that. Guys, is this, we've got a few things that we want to talk about. Obviously, Ted Cruz, the Colorado delegates, and Mike Pence. But first, is this like kind of legit plagiarism or just inspiration? Because there was also talk of like the Rick Astley stuff that he threw into the speeches as well.
Yeah.
Will we forget this in a week or two? Is it something?
I'm never going to let you down.
For the first of all, is this something to even discuss? Like, is this important enough that we should bring it? I mean, I guess you're talking about plagiarism from, is it plagiarism? Is it legit? What's going on?
No, it is not important enough, but the 24/7 news cycle beast must be fed.
Okay. That's acceptable. Hadley, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say I would like to talk to some of my old English teachers about the question, is this plagiarism? Or some of my old journalism teachers, because I have a hard time deciding. I looked at the video and I looked at the written part of the speech, and some of the words and ideas that are allegedly have been plagiarized are pretty universal. Like my parents taught me to keep my word.
What you're saying, Hadley, is that two people can be equally banal.
Right.
Okay.
Or that are, yeah. Somebody said something like, "Oh, we should celebrate that. Like the two parties both have leading women speakers at their conventions years apart who sort of share these universal values." But I think another way to look at it is our political rhetoric has just become so devoid of meaning that it's all just kind of say these things that sound good, like keep your word and work hard, and those things don't actually tell us what direction either party's going to go in terms of policy. But that's not really the point of the First Lady's spiel, right? Whoever's in the running for First Lady is trying to humanize the man who's running for president, and I think that she did that. I think the other aspects of her speech, if she talks about her experience as an immigrant or the fact that she wants to focus on education policy, those things kind of have gotten lost in the coverage over these 58 words, I think it was, that are very, very similar to Michelle Obama's speech.
I think it's obvious it was plagiarized. I mean, I think it is plagiarism because the speechwriters were like, hey, what does a nominee's wife say during her speech? Let's find out. Let's find out. And they looked up Michelle Obama, and this is what happened, I guess. And I guess that's what offends me more is for an example of what to say, you went to Michelle Obama. I mean, just like at the RNC? What?
Maybe she just...
I feel bad for her.
She's never done it before.
I think it's bad for her. Yeah. I feel really bad for her because, she's in an impossible... she's in an impossible position. Speechwriters wrote it for her. She didn't write it. And they embarrassed her. I mean, I think it's incompetence of the highest order. I think that it's absolutely shameful that whomever the Trump campaign hired to write this would do that to her and put her in that position where she's mimicking Michelle Obama's words. And I think it is an example of some campaign incompetence. I cannot believe that they wanted this to suck all the oxygen out of the room.
I don't think they wanted it to, but I also don't think that it really does or will, or I don't think it'll stick around for long. You know, the 24-hour news cycle has to be fed, and the 24-hour news cycle has already moved on,
right?
You know, because there's the Ted Cruz thing that we're going to talk about. But I do feel bad for Mrs. Trump because I'm not sure exactly what went down in terms of who wrote the speech or what. But as one of my friends pointed out, and this is, I think, a legitimate point, regardless of how you feel. I mean, at the end of the day, plagiarism's wrong. Okay, kids, don't do it. If you do it on your English paper, you'll get a 0. You'll get in trouble. You might get serious trouble at school. It's dishonest. It's wrong. But as sloppy as this was from a campaign perspective, they're running against someone who was sloppy with national security secrets. You know,
sloppy's the nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
Right. But what I'm saying is this does not have an impact. It doesn't tell me much about what kind of first lady she's going to be or what kind of president he's going to be. It certainly doesn't tell me anything that I didn't already think or know. Yeah. You know?
I know that, Jay, you're constantly talking about, I mean, your cynicism levels at this point.
Oh, it's
they're
through the
stratospheric.
roof,
They're stratospheric. And I will say
I need
this.
Jesus.
Yeah,
More Jesus in my life.
We all do.
To be less cynical.
And I will say this, though. I mean, to the extent, there is an extent to which I share your cynicism. And I think that has more to do with the hysteria of the 24/7 cable news cycle. I mean, the things that we will pour our energy into talking about are just incredible. I mean, we're going to move on. We're going to talk about Ted Cruz, I'm sure. But today, you would have thought that the final word had been written about the career of Ted Cruz. He committed political suicide. No one will ever hear from him. I am just like, 6 months from now, absolutely nobody is going to remember that this happened. We get caught up in the moment, and our culture, it's related to Pokemon Go. It really is. We are so easily swept up.
Oh, you're being serious.
I am being serious. They're both symptoms of an underlying cultural thing, and that is that we are so easily caught up and swept up in the latest fad or the latest thing, and we have to do it. I think that cable news is the same way. The country's the same way.
Makes sense. What do you guys think? Listening to us on the Facebook stream, you guys have been awfully quiet. I know we have viewers. We have a lot of them, but you guys have been really quiet. So pipe up. If you want to join the chat, hit the click more click for more button on the viewing window, and you can jump in the chat. Hadley, as a former delegate ish once that didn't make it quite to this level. I don't even know how it works. We talked about that on the show.
She was a JV. She was a JV delegate.
So you were like an ISIS delegate. Wow. You'd be causing a lot more ruckus if you were. There was what was the kerfluffle going on with the delegates' audible vote for the nominee, and then the Colorado delegates, of which you were a part, kind of left the protest. Is there anything to this? What happened there?
Yeah, several states were not happy with the way this went down. And if you were following what happened, I mean, some of this stuff gets kind of technical, but there are rules that govern the way the convention works. And there are some states that wanted the rules to change, and they wanted a roll call vote on this so that the count of the votes would be accurate. But instead, they did a voice vote, and that's, all the yays, all the nays, let's hear it. And then they decide the yays have it or the nays have it. And so there were some states that were very unhappy with the decision to have a voice vote instead of a roll call vote on some of the rules. And this is only significant because the rules basically govern whether or not delegates can vote for another candidate. Right. And so especially the delegation from Colorado, which I think probably has to be inside of the Republican half of the country.
You know,
the
they were
most-
high, Hadley. Let's just be a minute. They were all high.
Yeah, come on, no.
What I was going to say is that they're the most anti-Trump Republican party in the country. I'd say the Colorado Republican Party, because don't forget what went down here in the Centennial State.
Yeah.
We had a caucus. Our caucus resulted in Ted Cruz sweeping, taking all
the
34, 35 of the delegates from the state of Colorado. And then when Donald Trump lost miserably here because he didn't engage in the process at all, maybe because he didn't understand the process at all, he basically said that our process was flawed. And he said, oh, this was a voterless victory. They never even voted. It was just these party bigwigs that decided that Ted Cruz would get all the delegates from Colorado, which is not accurate at all. I know it's a little different to have a caucus than to have a primary, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't a vote. It doesn't mean that people didn't have the opportunity to participate. I participated up to the state level. And so I think Trump did himself no favors with this group of people that already voted against him in the caucus. Then he said, well, your system is flawed. That's why I didn't win. And so these folks, nice folks from Colorado, show up to the RNC. They feel like they've gotten ripped off again in this voice vote situation. And so then they all walked out. They all left the RNC. And this is the height of the irony, I think. If you're familiar with any kind of cultural politics in Colorado, this will be funny to you. But they asked the Texan delegates to move into the Colorado section to hide the fact on cable TV that there was a big empty area in the arena. And I just
That
think
is
that's
funny.
hilarious that they had the Texans move in.
You'd think they'd ask the
Because-
Californians to move in because the Californians are there anyway.
Right.
But
Yeah,
That's
but
funny.
during ski season, there's a lot of Texans who come around Colorado, and the Coloradans don't like it. And I'm saying this is sort of a neutral party because I'm also an immigrant to the state of Colorado
That's funny.
from North Carolina. But yeah, that was sort of the background on how that happened. But there were other states like Virginia and Utah were not happy either.
Well, what about the even more explosive moment with Ted Cruz's speech without a Trump endorsement, and then he was, kind of the closet, vote your conscience, vote for me.
No, he just said vote your conscience. He
know.
didn't say vote for me.
No, he didn't say vote for me, but vote your conscience and vote for somebody who upholds the Constitution. The tiene grandes cojones.
Yeah.
I mean,
It was something.
that was. What do you guys think about that move? What's your analysis there?
Well, I it's interesting. People always want to split things up into binaries, and they say things like, "Well, was Ted Cruz just being courageous here, and giving the middle finger to Donald Trump, or was this a political calculation for his political future in 2020?" And I'm like, those are not opposites.
No, they're
okay,
not opposites at
I mean,
all.
this is absolutely calculated, and I think. I think it's completely understandable. I mean, I don't know why the guy who's been called Lion Ted, okay, this was his nickname for how long, Lion Ted is going to go and offer an endorsement for Donald Trump. I think that's absolutely ludicrous. I think he did what he needed to do. I think he is counting on his political future. I think he thinks that Donald Trump is going to crash, and he's going to crash hard. And people are going to be looking for somebody who's not tainted by association with Donald Trump. That's what Ted's counting on. He may well be right. And I think people writing his obituary, his political obituary right now, are a little tiny bit premature
Yeah.
about that. I don't know. What do you think, Adley?
Yeah. Never write political obituaries. They're like zombies. They keep coming back from the dead. A lot of politicians have done
Hillary Clinton.
that. Yeah. Mark Sanford, there's all these people that I can think of. But, oh, gosh. Vote your conscience. Some small part of me is kind of like, yeah, stick it to him. Like, tell him to vote your conscience. But as much as it was a calculated move from Cruz, I think it was a calculated move from Trump to let him say that. I think Trump saw the transcript of the remarks. I think he wanted people to boo him. I think some commentators...
I think we know that actually was manufactured by the campaign. He had campaign staffers start the booing. I mean, I think that's actually established.
Naturally.
Yeah.
But, part of the problem at this RNC has been can the Republican Party present itself to the nation as a united party? And I think what Trump wanted to see happen in this moment when Cruz spoke was to say, hey, you know what? We're all united in booing Ted Cruz right now. That this might have been the moment when they were united, which I don't think was really the case if you were actually there. I think some people were actually happy to hear what Ted Cruz had to say and happy to hear him mention voting your conscience. I think Trump supporters shouldn't overreact to this, because I think it's telling in an ugly way when you get upset with someone for saying vote your conscience, as if voting your conscience is different from what you're planning on doing. You see what I'm saying? Like, if voting for Trump, if you know that it's not the same as voting your conscience,
That's a problem, isn't it?
I think
you could have ended that statement, Hadley, by removing, by just saying, Trump supporters should not overreact. Like, I think you just ended it right there. You know,
I think what you're getting at, Hadley, is somebody very wisely posted in a meme. And they said, here's the real question. When Ted Cruz got up and said, vote your conscience and vote for the man who will defend the Constitution, why didn't you think he was talking about your guy?
Yeah, exactly.
That's sort of the rock bottom question, right? So all the Trump people upset and mad at him, what they're really admitting is that they know in their heart of hearts that if I were to vote my conscience, I wouldn't vote for this guy. And he's not going to protect the Constitution, right?
Yeah. So I'm saying play it cool, Trump people.
And I'm going to
just say, you know what? I do plan on voting my conscience, and I think that means voting for Donald Trump.
Which
just
is
leave
fine.
it at
and
that.
we're going to get to that at the very
to that,
end of this discussion. But first, right before we get to answering that questions on voting, because I know that's kind of a hot button issue in voting conscience. Mike Pence, game changer? Does that change the equation? Like, are we all like, whoa, yeah, this is awesome? Or is it like,
greatest ticket ever?
We're going to put the bumper sticker on our car. Hadley, what do you think?
I don't know what to say about Mike Pence. I mean, what I said about him on Fox Business recently was he's contrast to Trump in certain ways. You know, he certainly has political experience. He was in Congress. He was actually the head of the Republican Study Committee for a while, which is a pretty conservative caucus. He governed Indiana for the most part as a conservative governor, although he expanded Medicaid, and I think
didn't he vote down RFRA? The RFRA.
He caved on RFRA, right?
Yeah. Right. So he is not without some marks on his record that don't look very good, but in general, this is a conservative guy with a strong resume, and I think there were a lot of people who didn't want the job, and so.
Oh, here's somebody who actually
willing.
decided to take it.
Do you think that's true, Hadley? I mean, that's I like your theory. I mean, I think that sounds plausible.
I think there are a lot of people
anybody
who didn't want the job. Absolutely. I think a lot of the people who ran against Trump didn't want the job.
Do you think that? I mean, I've gotten the sense, and and a lot of people have been saying this, but I don't actually know if it's true, and I don't know quite what I think about it. Everybody's saying that Chris Christie is the one who Christie really wanted it, and Newt really wanted it. Do you think that's true?
Yes, I think that those two people wanted the job. But,
okay. Mike Pence,
usually there's a broader pool of people that you can vet,
right,
than just a handful of people who are willing. You know.
I took it as a kind of a little bit of a lame attempt by Trump to mollify his conservative critics, because Mike Pence has been known over his career as being a solidly conservative governor and politician, and it's almost like, let me throw him a bone and nominate Pence as the VP. Is it a game changer for me? No. I mean, the problem with this campaign, and every problem of this campaign, every problem with this ticket is the man at the top of it. Okay? And that's not going away. He is the problem, and nothing he does on the down ticket is going to alter anything. He has fundamental character issues that people like me and a lot of my friends simply can't abide. And so I don't think he's going to solve his problem by nominating Mike Pence.
That brings us to like kind of our dead reckoning, the reason for the show, where the rubber hits the road. Everywhere you turn, every conversation I have with my father-in-law, hi Jim, over dinner, all the comments I see in Facebook regarding voting comes down to one thing. Do we roll the dice with Trump? That's kind of a phrase I'm picking up from somebody's Facebook. But do we roll the dice with Trump, knowing the Supreme Court's at stake? Or do we vote our conscience, thereby giving the vote to Hillary? Is kind of the
or not
consensus.
supplying a vote to Trump, which might help him beat Hillary. I'm sorry, we got to dispense with this nonsense that a non-vote for Trump is not a vote for Hillary. This is a thing called logic and called science, and that means that my vote for anybody other than Trump actually is a vote for that somebody who is not Trump. It's not a vote for Hillary. So
it's not a vote for Hillary, but
I understand why people say that.
You see that we're going with it, though, right? You guys see where they're going
I
with
do.
that
Of course
train of
I
thought?
do. I do. Of course I see that train of thought, and I normally advocate it. I mean, I normally advocate it. I am an incrementalist. I'm not a perfectionist. I don't need perfect candidates. I have always been a lesser of two evils person.
That is the nature of politics.
Yeah, I have been. And so I supported John McCain. I supported Mitt Romney. These were not my ideal candidates by any stretch of the imagination. What I am saying, however, is that I have met my bridge too far. I've met the candidate that I personally cannot support.
Hadley, is risking Hillary in office enough to keep you from rolling the dice with Trump on the matter of principles?
Here's something that, figuratively keeps me up at night. It doesn't really keep me up at night because after I say my prayers, I feel pretty good.
And then the baby kicks.
And then the baby kicks and I feel happy and I don't really stay up worrying about this. But this is the question. How much power does today's president have? Because the founding fathers did not see this office to be what it's become. The administrative state, the executive branch of our government has just gone out of control. It's completely out of control. And that's the problem, because I don't like the idea of either one of these major party candidates being that powerful. And of course, I'm going to go vote for members of Congress and representatives from my state to the U.S. Senate, senators, and representatives to my local legislature in Colorado. Of course, I'm going to go vote for people that, I believe will represent my worldview and that will perform those functions well. And that should really be where legislation comes from. That should be where our policies come from. But my concern is that the office of the presidency has become too powerful. And that's why I'm worried about these candidates. Because ultimately I'd like to see a president who is forced to work with Congress to change policy. And I know President Obama has tried everything that he can in the face of what seems like an impossible partnership with this Congress today. But that's why, if you're someone who agrees with President Obama on the policy issues, and you don't like that I've been so critical of him over the past 7, almost 8 years, I've been critical of some of these abuses of executive power for exactly the problem that we're finding ourselves in now. Because eventually, the person in that office is going to be someone you disagree with. And when that time rolls around, you're going to wish that the office was more limited.
Amen to that.
That's our problem. That's why I don't know how we fix it, but that's the
I agree.
problem.
Brian,
That's stellar. No, listen, that's stellar analysis, and this is why Hadley. This is why Hadley's the star of the show, right? She just goes a little bit deeper than it's not just Trump, and it's not just Hillary. It's the office.
All of that was just me trying to avoid the question of who am I.
All right, I have more to say about that. I really do. I have more to say about that.
I knew that if this was like MSNBC, they would be interrupting you and trying to get you to answer the question.
Yeah.
But I actually want to know. I want to know, Brian. Both from you and Hadley, what factors are you thinking through and where to cast your vote? I'm not going to ask you who you're voting for because it's silly. But
I can tell you who I'm not voting for.
We know who you are. How are you thinking? How are you processing this and thinking through this? Because as the fun part about this show is that we're Christians,
Yes.
and so our theology
Yes.
and our worldview
Yes.
factors into our decision making.
Yes. So factor. As I look at these candidates, and I have to say this first. I have to preface my remarks, okay? Because I'm just going to tell you my personal perspective, and I'm not saying that this is the way that everybody has to think, and this is not the way everybody's got to reason through these things. So let me back up. I want to say this, that if somebody listening finds themselves in the position where they really feel that we cannot afford a Hillary presidency and we simply have to play with the cards we're dealt, and Trump's the last guy standing, and we got to roll the dice with Trump, and we got to go that way. Listen, I'm not going to judge you for voting for Donald Trump in November. I'm not. I think that's a calculus that you're well within your rights to make, and you should make it. Again, vote your conscience if that's the way you feel about it. I happen to just disagree with that analysis, and I go about it in a different way. I really do have such fundamental problems with Trump as a candidate that I can't go that direction. In other words, I have a hard time seeing who the lesser of the two evils is here. I am a classical liberal. I'm a man who believes in limited government, in individual liberty, in free markets, in free trade. I am a classical liberal, and Donald Trump is not. Donald Trump has articulated none of those things. On top of that, we have simply the character issues. This is a petty person who mocks a reporter that didn't treat him quote unquote fairly, a reporter who happened to be disabled, and he did that. That has to be one of the most vile moments in recent American political history. I could go down, there's a long litany. Here is where I come down in terms of how I am voting, and hopefully this is helpful to people. The Senate. Everything rides on the Senate. If you have Hillary Clinton as president and a Democrat Senate, game over.
Katie, bar the door.
Katie, bar the door. If you have Donald Trump as president and a Democrat Senate, game over. Why? Well, because everybody's telling me we need Trump to nominate Supreme Court justices. Who approves Supreme Court justices? The Senate. Okay? So, if the Democrats win the Senate, all of your reasons for voting for Donald Trump go out the window, okay? What I am saying is that in my calculus, I have two people at the top of a ticket. I can't support either one of them. But you know what I can do? I can work for the Senate, because the Senate is going to be the bulwark. That is where things need to happen. If the Democrats take the Senate, then no amount of Trump support is going to avail you. And so that's where I'm going to throw my energy, is into Senate races, and that's where I will advocate. And that's why I'm not telling anybody, don't vote. Go vote. And I don't care what you do at the top of the ticket. I really believe Hillary's going to win anyway. I really don't think Trump wins. I don't care what you do at the top of that ticket. But in those other races, in your congressional race, in your Senate race, those are the key races. And so in my analysis of it, that's where my energy is going to go.
That's all right. All right. Remley just sent me an image, and I was trying to get it loaded into the system of the Trump banner from tonight's RNC, and it's just unreal. You know, being in politics is kind of like being in law enforcement. It should be about public service. You're there to serve. You're there to represent. You're there to, serve and represent people, right? Mm-hmm. The banner, and Remley, post that in the chat window. The banner is just unreal. It's just his name in huge letters above the stage, and it's like this is about Trump. This is not about America. This is not about a better society. This is about Donald J. Trump. So
Jay,
anyway,
it's hard to disagree. I mean, anybody who's paid attention
I mean,
to the
we
man's
know
career that he's into himself.
We won't digress. The show could go down. We're already over
No, I
halfway
mean,
through the
I think
show.
Hadley.
and it's
Listen, I think Hadley made a very substantive point about the power of the presidency, and that's the really deep problem. And then I think my perspective was substantive in the sense that, guys, actually, all of this stuff is all smoke and mirrors if the Senate goes to the Democrats. That really is where the key issue is, and I think those are unique perspectives that
You're
other
right, 'cause
outlets have not
the president
presented.
only nominates.
Yeah, the Senate has to approve it. So,
well, when we come back, we're gonna. I may throw the next two topics into one segment. When we come back, we're gonna talk about the fake coup in Turkey, and it's honestly, it's not that disconnected, and some European terror crisis going on right now, and I don't think they're disconnected at all. We've been talking about the Trump parade.
Oh, there's the banner. Classy, luxurious.
Yeah, if you're listening to us on Facebook Live right now, Remley just posted that banner from the RNC screenshot tonight with Trump in it. So go look at that while you listen to this message from Alliance Defending Freedom. You guys will be back right after this.
Discriminatory legislation. That's what HB 2 has been called, but nothing could be further from the truth. It's time to get the facts you're not getting from the media. Why did North Carolina pass this law in the first place? In short, to protect North Carolinians and their businesses. In February, the Charlotte City Council voted to impose a harmful ordinance that would have required all public accommodations, including businesses, schools, churches, and gyms, to open their restrooms, showers, and locker rooms to members of the opposite sex, invading citizens' privacy and safety, particularly women and children. For example, under the Charlotte Ordinance, the YMCA and the YWCA would have faced fines and even jail time if they didn't open showers and locker rooms to either sex at any time. Hard to believe, right? That's why parents, students, businesses, and others around the state raised serious privacy and safety concerns, but the Charlotte City Council didn't listen. In response, North Carolina passed HB 2 to correct what Charlotte had done and ensure that men can't gain access to women's restrooms. Are laws like HB 2 really needed? Yes. Increasingly, laws and policies that require restroom facilities to be open to anyone based on feelings rather than biology are being enacted. These laws ignore people's basic physical privacy rights. And there are documented cases of men pretending to be women using these laws to gain access to women's restrooms and changing areas to spy on and even sexually assault women and girls. These laws are also especially insensitive to those who have experienced sexual abuse. The very presence of a member of the opposite sex in an intimate setting, regardless of their intention, could trigger emotional and psychological trauma. Why can't people use restrooms and locker rooms based on their gender identity or feelings? There's no universal definition for gender identity. Allowing restroom access based on gender identification and not biological fact is unworkable. The only policy that protects everyone's privacy is one based on biological sex. But doesn't this law mandate discrimination against transgender people? Not at all. HB 2 simply restores fundamental privacy norms to restrooms and changing rooms in government and public school facilities. And it offers accommodations to those uncomfortable using restrooms that correspond with their biological sex. Maintaining sex-specific restrooms treats everyone fairly and is common sense. Does this bill allow bullying against children struggling with their gender identity? Absolutely not. Every child deserves to be treated with dignity, love, and respect. And North Carolina law specifically prohibits bullying and harassing behavior against children on the basis of gender identity. It's time for facts, not fiction. When we go to the restroom or locker room, we have an expectation that only members of our sex will be in there. And it's more than an expectation, it's a right. HB 2 is good for North Carolina. It's constitutional and ensures the privacy and safety of all.
Fill in the blank, the Gary Marshall edition. If you're unfamiliar with Gary Marshall, he is a well-known writer, director, and actor. He died this last week. May he rest in peace. So here's your trivia game, guys. You excited for this? You guys ready to test your Gary Marshall trivia?
I am so gonna lose.
The reason I'm not telling you what he wrote and directed is because that's the trivia.
Okay.
And I apologize. My app was not working at all. I noticed there's 75 comments on tonight's show, and I've seen 5. So I'm going to log in.
That's why everybody. That's
I'm
why
sorry,
Jay was
guys,
ignoring
I usually
you.
pull. I'm not ignoring you. I swear. Facebook has some issues to work out their live TV platform, but you're here and you're with us, and that's fantastic. So as we go through the game, I will pull up the chat window, and you guys can interact, and I will try to draw you into the conversation a little bit better than I have. 82 now. Oh, boy. Thanks, Facebook. You guys are the best. All right, guys. So, Hadley, we'll have you go and start this. How this game works is I read out the blank, and that's the word you're supposed to insert, and then the statement of the phrase. So, blank woman.
Pretty.
Pretty woman. Fantastic. Gary Marshall was the
I am so
director.
glad. I want to say I am so glad that I scrolled through Gary Marshall's IMDb profile today. So I am so ready.
I didn't do any such thing.
Well, you didn't
I really
prepare.
didn't.
You didn't prepare
No,
for the
I
game.
didn't prepare, but I just thought it was supposed to be kind of like, what do you know, not what did you study today?
I didn't study. I just glanced my eyes over it.
Uh-huh.
You knew that Gary Marshall wrote Pretty Woman without...
It was in the description of the game. that Jay
Oh, so
sent
you
us
did some
earlier today.
studying
There
today.
is-
Oh.
No, Jay sent us both the same game description.
It was.
He also said the
normally,
IMDb link.
Normally, I keep.
Well,
so
I
you
didn't
guys
click
know.
on
So
it.
those of you listening, so you know, normally I keep the game quiet. Remley and I keep the game quiet, but Remley, for whatever
Right.
reason, might have been distracted by the children and posted up what games we were playing
on our
channel, main channel on
yeah.
Slack. So yeah, Brian, the blank sister.
I have no idea. The good sister.
Other sister.
Oh, the other sister. Okay. Told you I was going to lose this game.
Hadley, blank Eve.
Christmas.
Good guess.
Wrong. Brian?
No idea.
New Year's. New Year's Eve. Okay, Brian. Now he was an actor in this. He played this role, and I had no idea. This is pretty fantastic. Gold blank.
Finger.
Nice. What movie?
I don't know. It's a James Bond movie.
Yeah.
isn't
What
it?
was the name of the movie?
Goldfinger.
No, very good. Okay, just checking.
You're totally confusing
Hadley.
me.
The blank Van Dyke Show.
Dick Van Dyke.
Fantastic. Brian, blank bride.
Runaway.
Very good. Hadley, the odd blank.
Couple.
Nice. You guys are like all over it. All right, Brian. Extra points if you can name the 2 main actors in this one. Only because I watched it once and I hated it, but I don't know why I watched it. Anyway, I have weird memories. Blank board.
Blank board. Are you asking me what the blank is or who the 2 actors are?
What the blank is. And then extra points if you can name the actors.
Blank board. Longboard.
Overboard. Some weird 80s movie.
Yeah, no. Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas.
And
And
Goldie Hawn.
yes.
She got it.
Sorry.
Michael Douglas was
I
right
couldn't
though.
wait for you to
Well
do it.
done.
I wanted to do it.
Michael
know.
Douglas was right. Was that right? Was that right? So we split
No,
those
it was
points.
like-
No, it's
It was that other guy.
It's not Patrick
that kinda-
Swayze, is it?
No.
No, it was
No.
Mel Gibson.
It was
No.
No, it wasn't.
Anybody,
it was
anybody on the
Kurt Russell. It's Kurt Russell. It's got to be.
Kurt
Kurt
Russell. It was
Russell.
Kurt
That's what I
Russell.
said. I said
there was
Kurt
a whole
Russell.
there was a whole string of movies with those two.
I said Kurt Russell.
Yeah, I don't know, Mom. I think you're listening. Why did we watch that? I don't
Kurt
remember.
Russell and Goldie Hawn were married. That's why they were in all those movies together.
Oh,
There
I
you
actually
go.
really liked that movie Overboard. It's cute.
Yeah, it was fun. Okay, this is so much. The window. Why the apps are completely different. Like
know.
whatever.
Next
All right.
one. Next one. Come on.
Boom. Blank and Mindy.
My turn?
Yep.
Yeah, Blank and Mindy.
Millennial will never get this.
I wouldn't get
Mork.
it.
Yes, she got it. It's Mork. Who played Mork?
Man.
Who played Mork?
I don't know.
Robin
I've
Williams.
never seen it.
Robin Williams.
I've never seen it.
Fantastic. You guys are slaying it tonight. Brian, Blank God.
Oh.
Oh,
God?
God?
Yeah.
No.
It's not.
Hadley?
George Burns movie?
And my
No.
first thought was counterfeit gods. I was
Dear
like,
God.
no.
Oh, dear God.
Dear
Okay.
God.
All right.
Yeah. Hadley. The Blank Diaries.
Oh, the Princess Diaries.
Well done. Brian. Blank and Shirley.
Laverne. Laverne and Shirley.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You guys online are like slaying it too, by the way. There is probably a 6 or 7 second delay, so I don't see him right away. Hadley, never been blank.
Kissed?
Yes.
Ooh, she's hot. She's
Brian.
on fire.
Brian, blank pocus.
Hocus.
Well done. Hadley, blank day.
Independence Day.
Nope.
Beautiful.
Valentine's Day.
Oh.
Brian, happy
Days.
days. Well done. Okay, guys, extra credit. Blank. I think Barbara Streisand was in this one. Am I correct?
And it's just blank.
It's just blank.
It's just blank. Beaches.
Well done! Oh, man. I can't
Brian
believe you
wins.
got that.
Brian
I can't
wins.
believe you got that.
I scrolled through the IMDb thing earlier today.
and it was the Barbara Streisand reference, right?
Beaches. Okay, I just shocked even myself. I don't know who won. We didn't even tally the points, but that was fun anyway.
I think
I was
you
corrected.
win
I was
for saying
corrected.
beaches.
Bette Midler. Sorry, yes, Remley, you corrected me. It was Bette Midler.
Bette Midler.
Those two old white singing ladies. You know,
right.
that's
Bette Midler and
Barbara Streisand.
Very different.
They both have big noses, right? I'm terrible.
That's really
I'm
politically
horrible.
correct. Politically
Okay,
correct.
if we have time, we're going to try to break up this next topic. I'm just going to lump it into one thing because we have about a half hour left with you guys, unless we were to take off and come back. But it's
Let's do it. Let's go for it.
A military coup in Turkey appears to have failed, and President Erdogan has retained power, but not without sweeping recriminations. State of emergency, military officers dismissed, travel bans, teacher and ministerial licenses revoked. I mean, he's going the whole nine. This is a part of the world where Americans don't pay too much attention to either.
Right.
So, what should we make of all this? Who are the good guys? Was this a theatrical or cynical ploy to consolidate power by the president? Is
Yes.
it becoming the new Iran? Is it yes to all of the above? I mean, what's your political take here? And then, Brian, I have another question for you when we get there,
Okay.
but, start diving in, guys.
I think it was a political ploy. Erdogan, from what I understand, okay, now, and I'm not a Middle East expert by any stretch, but from what I understand, Turkey has had 5 or 6, depending on what you count as a coup. They've had 5 or 6 coups over the last 50 or 60 years, and generally speaking, the military is pro-Western democracy, and they generally will overthrow the government whenever the government is getting too authoritarian for them. They will come in and, kind of get the country back, move in the right direction. They generally don't fail in these things. The way that this military coup just simply collapsed like a paper tiger makes me very suspicious. It's the perfect opportunity for Erdogan to come back and do a little more cleaning house over various political enemies that he has, people in the military, to consolidate his power. And I think there's a lot of people worried that that's what happened here. This was all just theatrical show for him to really clamp down and become the de facto dictator of Turkey. And he is definitely he's an Islamist at the end of the day. And he's not pro-Western democracy. And I think this is concerning because Turkey is a NATO ally. And we have an ally that's kind of going off the reservation here. So, anyway, that's a little bit by way of background. But Hadley, what do you make of this?
Well, I think you're right, Brian, to point out how important Turkey is in the world's, sort of geopolitical atmosphere. It shares a border with Syria, and that border has been pretty porous during some of the migration of people out of Syria, and that includes some people who are sympathetic to ISIS even. They have a lot of ongoing problems in Istanbul and Ankara with terrorism. And for us, not just because of the NATO connection, but because the U.S. uses Air Force bases in Turkey to launch airstrikes against our enemies in that region, and from sort of a philosophical point of view, 30,000-foot view, Turkey has long been generally a secular government in a part of the world where many of the governments are theocratic.
Right.
And if you look at the Turkish flag, it has the crescent and it has a star. And the star is intentionally outside of the crescent. And from what I understand, I went to a conference in Turkey a few years ago. It was actually a feminist conference in Turkey,
Whoa.
which would make for a fascinating sidebar discussion sometime.
Yeah.
But they were pointing out that the star is outside of the crescent because they take a lot of pride in Turkey for having the government, represented by the star, outside of the crescent, which represents Islam. So it's not as if the overwhelming majority of people are not Muslims. It is that they have some form of separation of church and state, and
Some
that's
pluralism.
Right, exactly. Tolerance, pluralism.
Right.
And so it's very significant to watch what's happening in Turkey right now because, it would be upsetting not just, watching from afar to see Turkey sort of fall into a similar state as other Middle Eastern countries and societies that are governed by an Islamist government. But it's also strategically a loss for the United States in the region. And so I think it is very critical what's happening in that part of the world right now. And I think if nothing else, if people aren't really paying that close of attention, I mean, just when you hear it in the background, military coup in Turkey, I think this just adds another layer to that feeling that I said at the beginning of the show many people have. They just want to tune out from the chaos that they feel like the world is devolving into. This 2016 has had a lot of events at home and around the world that just haven't been good. And this is more noise coming from a part of the world that is generally pretty noisy anyway when it comes to terrorism and when it comes to danger and when it comes to violence. And so, hundreds of people are dead now because of this, what happened during this coup. And thousands of people have been arrested, and it doesn't look good.
I don't necessarily want to turn this segment into, a partisan political segment. But sometimes I think it is helpful to just step back and reflect a little bit. And look at the promises that were made by the current presidential administration in America about what an Obama administration would mean both for the nation and the world. And go back to 2008 and read the speeches and the promises about what an Obama administration would mean for peace and stability in the world. What it would mean for race relations in America. And I think by really any realistic or honest measure, looking at what was promised and what was delivered are incredibly divergent. We have a widespread cultural sense that things are disintegrating domestically in our country. Race relations are at a not an all-time low. Obviously, pre-civil rights era was pretty bad, but a post-civil rights low, I would have to say. And globally, things are pretty dicey. American leadership is absent in a lot of places in the world, and here we have a NATO ally, a pro-Western Western government or country, kind of moving in exactly the wrong direction. We have the obvious problems in the Middle East. You have China asserting its aggression in the South China Sea, which is very problematic. One of the largest and most profitable shipping lanes in the world. They're making inroads into. The world is heading into interesting times.
I've read a few historical texts and a few other sources during my research on Turkey and for some film projects. And there's been quite a push since the 60s and 70s to secularize like America. And so the secular component is still very, very strong. they're not Christian by any means, but they're far more democratic and ironically tolerant than the Islamic-led.
Well, they don't want to be Iran.
They don't want to be Iran,
Right.
and they do see some problems there. And Brian, I'm
But
curious.
Erdogan wants to be Iran. I think that's what's going on.
Well,
here.
everybody wants their dictatorship. I'm curious. Yeah, Hadley.
Jay was curious, but then his
decided it wasn't
curiosity
worth-
left him.
I decided it wasn't worth it. I said all I need to say.
Okay.
Hadley, do you think there's any, what are some connections you see between this and some of the ongoing terror in Europe?
Well, I think it's just a general sense of instability, and that's what I was getting at earlier. It's, people feeling less safe, people feeling as if the powers that be are not trustworthy, not trusting in institutions. This is a theme that I harped on our last podcast. But, when it comes to just, it's not just the rest of the region, but I think it's the rest of the world that has been feeling this sense of chaos creeping into the margins. And, a military coup, especially an unsuccessful one, it sort of brings that feeling of chaos to the forefront of people's minds, because you think, what happened in Dallas just a week or so ago? We had snipers targeting police officers. I mean, this is an example of, obviously it didn't get very far, but if people with military training wanted to target the people who keep law and order in our own society, then you do have death, and you do have violence, and you do have suffering, and you do have people questioning, why, what would I do in this situation? That's why we've seen, for example, over the past 7 or 8 years, President Obama's terms have been a huge boon to the prepper industry. I mean, people have bought into not just guns and ammunition, but foodstuffs that they
Hey, we live in Montana.
in
You
their
don't have to
basements,
teach us about that.
Well, and they always say
Well,
war
but
is
it's not
good
just
for the
people
economy.
in Montana who have done that. It's people across the country, clearly, because we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry that has really boomed over the past several years. And so that's something that I think, the coup in Turkey is just another example on a long list of things. It could happen there. Where else might this happen?
I'd like to segue this into what we had planned as a third segment, but since we're running long on time,
Segue away.
I'm going to segue that into the trouble is that this sense of instability you're talking about, Hadley, is not relegated to some place like Turkey. It's actually all over the continent of Europe. I was in the south of France last week, and I was actually there when the terrorist in Nice decided to take a truck and plow it through a promenade on Bastille Day with a large crowd of people and killed, last count, I was 84, 85 people. These were men, women, and children.
It was insane.
That's dead. That's dead.
From a truck. He didn't
From
need
a
a
truck,
gun. He
yeah,
didn't need a
yeah.
bomb.
Yeah, ban trucks. No. That's not where I was going with that conversation. But here's the interesting thing, Hadley, that I think I learned from being there, is that there is incredibly widespread dissatisfaction with the French government. And when people have a sense there, the government will not address this problem. They will not address the lax immigration issues. Soft on immigration just invites terrorists to live in their communities. I'm in a little village, a little French village that's got a pretty high percentage Muslim population. This is as France as you get, right? I'm not in a tourist area. I'm just in a French village. There's a lot of Muslims there just living off of the government dole. And the sense that I get is that the French people are very, very upset about the fact that Hollande will not do anything about it. There's no backbone. Here's the problem with that, as I see it. The next French elections, you're going to see Le Pen win. Okay, now Le Pen, from what the media describes it as, is the far-right radical party in France. The one that doesn't believe in peace, love, tolerance, and kumbaya, I guess is what that means. But what you're going to see
Far
now...
right.
Yeah, far right. They're far right.
Mm-hmm.
What you're going to see is a pendulum swing, and this is the problem with instability. is you're going to swing the pendulum all the way to the other side, and that's going to merely contribute to the instability. But my sense is Germany has this problem. Germany has this problem. France has this problem. The continent has this problem.
Yeah. But Brian, you could be telling the story of the United States of America. Just replace Le Pen with Trump, and everybody who's afraid of instability wants a strong man. They want someone who's going to promise to keep them safe. And you look at the current president, who's been weak, who hasn't addressed immigration, who has made people feel more insecure in the way that our country is divided and the way our country is less safe. And of course,
kudos on the analogy there. I agree.
But of course, people are going to rush to someone like Trump.
Yeah. The problem, I'm saying the problems are more acute on the continent simply because of the immigration issue. I mean, the fact is ISIS is in Europe, and they're there in numbers and in strength.
Big numbers. I mean, Detroit they've got no-go zones all over Brussels. There's no zones in Paris. Detroit has no-go zones.
Look, but that's Detroit.
It's a little bit different. It
is a little different, but it's also awfully small in terms of...
Still, it's happening, though. On scale, yes. Comparative scale, yes. Yeah. But it's still beginning to happen. How many years it takes, I don't know. Yeah.
But I'm concerned about massive... I'm concerned about massive conflict on the continent of Europe. If we know anything from the last 100 years, it's that massive conflicts on the continent of Europe...
World War III.
...do typically end up involving the United States of America.
# cynic.
I keep thinking of The Dark Knight Rises,
right?
When Catwoman says, you and your friends are going to wonder how you could live so large and leave so little for the rest of us. And she says, the storm is coming. And I think there is a lot of division, not just in our country, but in a lot of countries around the world, between the people who feel like they have, like the game has been rigged against them, and there's a lot of people in the Trump train who feel this way. They feel like you and your friends in the establishment, you and your friends in power, you and your friends in the elite class have lived large, and you didn't leave a lot for the rest of us. You didn't address immigration. You didn't listen to our concerns, and the storm is coming, and so I worry that division between our social and moral fabric as a country is
that sort of thing leads to it's not going to end well. And this is the thing that's populism. That's the politics of envy and greed. And when that was tried in the French Revolution, it ended in exactly what Christopher Nolan portrayed in The Dark Knight Rises. Perceptive viewers of that movie, remember the courts that they had, the citizen courts? Christopher Nolan was putting a modern version of the French Revolution on the screen for us. And that kind of populism does lend itself to that. And that's another reason why I'm not a fan of Trump's brand of populism.
Right.
That I'm going to be the strong man who's going to stick it to the aristocrats who've disadvantaged you.
But if I can speak for just one more minute on this topic, I feel like this is it's a very depressing. I feel like we've given people like a very negative view. People are in conflict. The world is falling apart. This is all so
That's the way
terrible
I feel when I
negative.
turn on social media.
Hadley, it is. We have to tell the truth.
Right. We do have to tell the truth, but I want to try to interject something positive here, and that is that God ultimately is still in control, and he has charged us with being his kingdom builders here on earth. And where there is conflict, we have the opportunity to be part of a reconciliation and to reach out to people who are different from us, to people who do feel like they've been treated unfairly, to listen to them, to show them Christ's love. I mean, if we are learning anything from this election cycle in the U.S., it's that our greatness as a country does not lie with our politicians. It should lie with our people. It should lie in our civil society. The solutions are really there. The solutions are really with us and our own families and communities, and we always have a choice. It's not the choice lesser of two evils, but it's truly a choice to do something positive and good in the lives of others who are closest to us in our sphere of influence. So I would say, if all of this stuff bothers us at night, and it does keep us up at night, and it does make us feel like the world's falling apart, then let's all just commit to doing what we can to reaching out to our neighbor and getting to know him or her and forming relationships with people and strengthening the social fabric and strengthening the moral fabric of our country. We're always free to do that. At least today, we're still free to do that.
Hadley, how do you close the show with just epicness?
She's kind of the mic drop princess.
Thank you. That
I'm
was-
just gonna call her
I
the.
have to find some outlet for my, everybody wants to do something,
Yeah.
right? And it's like so frustrating to watch the political circus. And so what do you do? And I guess
You do what you can.
do what you can.
Right. And
That's right.
wherever God has placed you in the relationships God has put you in. Yeah,
Those are great
Hadley's
words.
the mic drop princess. So
Great words, guys. Let's close the show with a little trivia. Final game of trivia.
All right, cool.
Anybody want a game?
Let's do a game.
Game. We're gonna close the show with this.
Oh, my sweet Wesley, what have I done?
I love that intro. I was so happy when I put that together this morning.
nice job.
All right, guys. Here's how this game works. This is another game of trivia. This is a question-based trivia. I will ask questions, and you guys will answer them. All right. Is everybody online ready? And
I'm ready.
All right. Team Hadley. Here we go. Team Matson. Ready? All right, Brian. Hadley, you started the last one. I am going to start with Brian. Brian, what does Count Rugen study?
Can I answer?
I
Yep.
can't remember.
He studies pain.
Yes, absolutely.
Pain.
Hadley's on her way to slay it again. Hadley, what word probably doesn't mean what Vizzini thinks it means?
Come on.
Oh,
So
you keep using that word.
And I do not-
Inconceivable.
Very good. Very good.
Inconceivable.
just set it up on the tee for her there. Okay, give her
Yeah.
an easy one.
And I can't, Remley, post up in the chat window. I can't remember why you picked this game. I think you made a comment about
Because
Twilight.
I tweeted.
That's
it.
right. We
Brian's
didn't even
story.
tell. We
It's a
didn't. So
Brian story.
Brian.
So I'm giving a talk in front of a bunch of millennials, and I quoted The Princess Bride, and they all just stared at me blankly. Nobody laughed, and I just thought, oh, I'm so sad. It's so
old.
sad. I
And
felt
then
so old.
and then I posted, when you told that story on Facebook, I posted in your comments. That's the way I felt at like an Everclear concert. I looked around the room going,
Nobody
"What?
knows this
These
band."
people are really old. Like, this isn't right. Okay. Where'd we leave?
You just did Inconceivable. So
I know. Brian.
Yeah.
What is the most famous blunder?
Starting a land war in Asia. No! Going up against the Sicilian when death is on the line.
I got never get involved in a land war in Asia.
No.
That's
the
the second.
The second
Remley
is the never get involved in a land war in Asia.
Yep,
The
the second
first
one.
is
Brian-
never
Brian
go
gets
up
double
against a
points for that.
Sicilian when death is on the line.
Hadley, what assets does Inigo Montoya say they have before storming the castle?
Your strength, my steel, and this black cape.
It's not a
And,
black
and
cape.
his brains, Wesley's
it?
brains.
Well done.
No, but I don't think it's not a black cape.
No.
It's a
It's a robe. It's like
a robe, but
Holocaust robe.
that's what he calls it. Don't they
Holocaust
call it the Holocaust robe?
everybody move. I like doing that like in big crowds. See if anybody catches that reference. Brian,
I am the pirate Red Roberts.
Brian, and this is totally culturally applicable, you guys. Okay, what brings us together today?
Marriage. Marriage is what brings us together today.
Oh, bad. Remley or Hadley.
Hadley.
Sorry, I was reading Remley's tweet. Hadley, what does ROUS stand for?
Rodents of unusual size.
Oh, very good. Brian,
You guys are so making me want to go watch this movie.
where?
now.
I know.
know.
I got stuck watching YouTube clips. I was like, I gotta find
I'm
some
always
content.
like in the woods in Colorado, and I'm like, Aaron, look out for the ROUSs.
Yep,
I love it.
totally. They do exist in Chicago. I've seen them chase me out from under a bush once at 2:00 in the morning. Brian, where is iocane from?
Iocane powder, Australia, isn't it?
Very good, sir. Very good.
Odorless,
Hadley,
tasteless.
where does Vizzini dock his boat?
The Cliffs of Insanity?
Ding, 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 ding.
But she got it.
Brian, what is the real name of the man that Wesley inherits the dread pirate Roberts from?
Ooh.
a tough
Oh, we're digging deep here.
Well, it's in a line of dialogue, so I guess it's fair
It
game.
is.
I cannot remember. I do not remember.
Ryan.
Ryan.
Oh, his name is Ryan.
Gotcha.
Now, Brandon McLean Smith on the Facebook chat says we should change you should change your band name to Bunch of Millennials from Ticker Tape Parade. To
Bunch of
Bunch of
millennials.
millennials.
Which is, and the irony there is you're not millennial at all.
Exactly.
Hadley, where would a clever man put the poison?
In his opponent's drink.
No, a clever man puts it in his own drink.
Not a
Because he
strong
would
man
know.
put it
Because he would know that only a great fool would reach for what he was
That's
given.
in front of him. Yeah, that's true. Oh man, I was overthinking it.
You overthought
Brian,
that one.
Brian, what country is Prince Humperdinck the heir of?
It's not Gilder. Gilder is the one that he has to frame for it. Remember, I've got Gilder to frame, a king to murder, and Gilder to frame for it. I'm swamped. I can't remember the name of his country though. Florin.
Hadley, who is not left-handed?
Inigo Montoya or Wesley. Neither one of them.
Both. Well done.
Well done. She gets it.
Brian, what is worse than a fight to the death?
To the pain.
Hadley, Fezzik was on what squad?
Brute Squad.
Well done. Boy, you guys nail. I wouldn't get any of these. This is why I'm asking the questions. Brian, what is another way of saying I love you?
As you wish.
As you wish.
As you wish.
As you wish. Molly,
Which is
tonight's
a
gonna be-
horrible theology of love, by the way.
Molly's. We can talk about that on
Yeah,
another
okay.
show.
It is.
Hadley, when someone is all dead, what is the one thing you can do?
When somebody is all
Go
dead?
through. You can go through their clothes for spare chain.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Oh,
That
that's
was it.
funny. That's funny.
Sorry, I need a cough button here.
Yeah. Brian, which country is Prince Humperdinck trying to frame for Buttercup's murder? You already kinda
Gilder.
answered that.
You
Gilder.
already said that.
You did. Well, hey, go away. I'm hitting the wrong one. I gotta start the closing theme music here. Hadley, Fezzik says it's not his fault that he's the biggest and strongest because he doesn't even what?
Exercise.
Very good. Brian, what does Miracle Max coat the pill with to help it go down easier?
Chocolate.
Nice. And finally, Miracle Max says that true love is the greatest thing in the world except what?
For an MLT, mutton, lettuce, tomato.
Wow.
Oh, we're good. We're good.
Oh, you guys are great.
I don't think that we missed many. That was
Man,
pretty good.
you guys are awesome.
Hashtag not a real millennial.
Love it. Good job, Hadley.
Well done, youngin'. Okay, guys, that wraps up our show. I'd like to thank Alliance Defending Freedom for sponsoring today's episode. You can visit them at www.adflegal.org. They are fighting in the courts to defend our freedoms over life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Brian, Hadley, where can people go to find out more about you? Until the next show.
I have a public Facebook page, Dr. Brian G. Mattson. I have a Twitter handle at Brian G. Mattson. You can go to my webpage, drbrianmattson.com.
And you can find me doing my day job at IWF.org. That stands for Independent Women's Forum, but I don't speak for them here. I just speak for myself. And you can find more of me speaking for myself on my Twitter, which is at Hadley Heath.
Well done. And to follow Dead Reckoning, subscribe to our podcast, check up on blog posts and updates, and see all the great memes that Remley posts. go to www.deadreckoning.tv. We are a 501c3, part of the Dead Reckoning Entertainment brand. Please don't forget to give us a donation. We'll send you a shirt or a hat. That said, until next week, I'm Jay Friesen.
I'm Brian Mattson.
And I'm Hadley Heath.
And this is Dead Reckoning Radio.